Welcome to the Breakthrough Lounge. This is your author, your transformational speaker, and your life coach, Lonnie. I am here one more beautiful Monday. So I am so excited that you have decided to join me this afternoon. I am super excited. So just a recap from last week. It was exciting. We got, just really deep last week. Just had a few callers to share with us about their breakthrough. So that was just super exciting. I want to give a huge shout out to Vox Wave Radio. Yes, Reggie Reg and Mr. Ron, our fabulous engineer. So before I get into today's topics, I have a few events that I want to share with you. As you know, this month is what? Black History Month. So just giving all the honor this month to everybody in the past that paved the way for you guys, for us to be here. So I am super excited about that. And guess what? I have an event next month, you guys, called I Am Her experience. So with I Am Her, it's just basically saying I am her. I am her struggle. I am her divorce. I am her who have kids. I am her. So letting the world know it doesn't matter that we all as women have different stories. At the end of the day, I am her. So that event will be taking place March the 30th, you guys, at the Carolina Kitchen in Hyattsville. You do have to RSVP. There's limited seating because I want it to be an intimate environment. And I am honoring somebody that day. She doesn't know it, but I want to honor this person because she has been standing with her and just she's just amazing. So I want to honor that young lady on that day. So I would love for you guys to be able to help me to honor that young lady on that day. So, I mean, today is just amazing, you guys. I am rocking, I want you guys to get into my shirt. And it basically says, I stand with survivors. This young lady, I bought this shirt from on Facebook. Her name is Darlene Clark. Shout out to Darlene, who also is a survivor of childhood trauma and sexual abuse. So shout out to you, young lady. You're doing a fabulous job down there in Florida. So I wanted to represent you tonight. So today's topic, you guys, today's topic is really, really heavy. It resonates with so many people, you guys. It resonates with so many people. So tonight's show is about broken bonds. Broken bonds that happens between parents. When that bond is broken, when that maternal bond is broken, how does that shape you as a child going into adulthood? What does that look like? And what are the effects that you have in life because of those broken bonds? So in the lounge today, that is what we're going to be talking about. And I want you to go ahead and write down the number. It is 240-719-2560. So I want you to go ahead and write that number down. And if anything that resonates with you or that you want to talk about today in the Breakthrough Lounge, please feel free to call. Okay, so don't feel scared. You don't even have to acknowledge your name if you don't want to. Just call in, because your story may can help somebody else that may be tuning into the show tonight. And we want to be able to save people. We want to be able to share with people our experiences, okay? So please do me that favor. The number again is 240-719-2560. So first of all, I want to break down what is a bond. What is a bond? So I'm going to read the definition of a maternal bond. A maternal bond is the relationship between a mother and child. So we all know, most of us who have children, we know what that feels like in the womb, like in that 9-month period where you are attached and you're making that connection with your baby. How important that is. How important that, again, when you're going to the doctors, they're making sure that you're eating right. They're making sure that your mind is right. They're making sure all of these things. Why? Because they know inside of the womb, the baby is forming that connection. And it want to make sure that the baby has a healthy environment. But what happens when you are like a child like myself who was born into addiction? So a little backstory on me. My mom, you guys, was a heroin addict of all her children. So I did not live with her. So that's why this story is so important that I share with you guys, because there's so many other people out there that probably experienced the same thing that I did. So with my mother using drugs, you guys, we know that drugs is deadly in itself. So to bring a newborn into the world exposed to an addiction, exposed to a drug, it can be really deadly. It can leave a lot of effects on the baby. Some of the effects can be withdrawal. So even talking to some of my family members, because I wanted to get the backstory on how I entered the world. And basically, it was a lot of suffering there, where coming through the birth canal, instead of you coddling your baby and having that moment, guys, I didn't get that because I was going through a withdrawal with the addiction coming from my mother. So being in the NICU, everybody probably familiar with the NICU. NICU is typically where babies are sent that's kind of going through some challenges. They're not able to go right off to the daycare or the nursery, So my experience, I was in there for weeks, you guys, going through this whole withdrawal, even my siblings as well. And I didn't get that immediate attachment or that connection, that bond what most of us had with our kids, where we were able to get the baby, rest the baby on our on our heart, letting her hear, or letting him hear the heartbeat of that connection, you guys. So sometimes, because you don't get that, the baby loses that intimacy that he or she supposed to had. So I wanted to read something to you that I wrote down earlier. One of the most important relationships we have is the relationship we have with our mothers. Why? Because that is a big, important relationship. And can you imagine when a child doesn't have that relationship because the mom decided that this addiction is more important? And did you know that in the U.S., every hour a baby is being born to a mother who is addicted to something? It just, like, as I researched this thing, I was like, wow, there's so many kids that was like me that did not have that bond. So you guys, that bond is so important. And what happens when that bond is broken, I end up having to go live with a family that wasn't even mine, that had to take me in. And that's what typically happens to kids that's born into addiction. Their parents end up leaving them. So in my case, because my mother was heavy into drugs, it didn't take her long to leave the hospital and back out on the streets. So that's when I was just there. So most kids that don't have family members to go home to, they end up getting put in foster care. So it becomes a cycle of neglect, cycle of abandonment, because you came in the world with that DNA, because that's what your body end up going through while I was in the birth canal. So this bond that we're talking about tonight is so important. And it's so important for me because I now have to break the generational curse that says that because I came into the world in broken bondage, that may shape my story. So I had to do a lot of work, because the little Lonnie, you guys, was showing up still broken because of abandonment, because of that neglect. And that's what you see in a lot of our kids, you guys, when we see them and they get diagnosed with ADHD and depression and all of these things so young, mental retardation because of the effects of the drug or maybe the alcohol. And then you get put on all these labels, you guys, all of these labels, and you go through as a teenager being labeled like you're not good enough, you can't fit in here. And then you still go through that neglect thing because the first relationship that you were supposed to have neglected you. So now how do you cope through life? You guys, how do you go through life trying to figure your way out when the very person that was supposed to teach you how to bond in a relationship was gone without a trace? Without a trace. So when you see adults who have been victims of the broken bond, now you can see why attachment issues, abandonment issues, always feeling the need to fit in places, always feeling the need to have validation. Now let's think about that. Now you see why. Look at your circle. Look at the people around you. And you go to say, you know what, Lonnie, you're right. I didn't know that was still shaping me. I didn't know that was still what my past was lingering on to. Because you didn't have that bond. It was broken. So now that you are an adult and you have kids, how are you now going to shape that? What are you going to do different? Because believe it or not, a lot of us repeat the behavior. You know, so many people who have came into the world with drug addiction, and now they have kids and now they're on drugs. And it repeats itself. And now we have a cycle of abuse, a cycle of abandonment, a cycle of neglect, and it keeps happening. And that's why we lose our kids to the system. going into going into the jail, being incarcerated, getting in lots of trouble, all of these things, because the cycle has never been broken. We have to identify that, yes, that there was a broken bond, but the bond does not have to break you. The bond does not have to literally stop with you, and now you keep carrying it on. When are we going to get to the nitty gritty and say, you know what? There was a broken bond. Yes, that there was a missing link because my mother wasn't there. Maybe your father wasn't there. But guess what? That does not have to be your story. Understand that, yes, it happened to you. Don't allow that thing to hold on to you and you now become a victim for life. Don't be a victim for life. Don't do that. Why are you holding yourself hostage to that behavior? Understand that happened to you like I did. I had to understand as I went through therapy and say, wow, I didn't realize how important that bond was to have a mom there. I didn't understand how that can shape you going into your adult life, attaching yourself to different people and relationships because you want to fit in, because you didn't have that. Or females, we see a lot of women who are very catty, or women who don't get along, and women that find themselves every time they get into a clique or a different type of circle, it's always something. But if you can backtrack that thing and say, you know what? Let's see with the connection with your mother. Let's talk about that relationship. And sometimes you'll realize it wasn't any. Or they have a conflict with their mother. So the very woman that was supposed to teach you about women relationship didn't show you that. Now you off as an adult and you're now getting in circles with other women. You don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to be in relationship because no one showed you. And it's not your fault. But now that you know that link was missing, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do that your daughter don't have to suffer like you suffer? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to keep showing up as the broken bond? And now you pass that same behavior on to your daughter. And now when she have kids, now she neglects and abandons her child. Are you going to continue that, or are you going to get the help that you need? Are you going to sit in it and stand in your truth and say, you know what? I don't like that I didn't have a mother. I didn't like it. Even though my grandmother did an awesome job, she did the best that she could do, but it wasn't my mother. It wasn't what I needed. It wasn't the natural thing, because again, back to the definition, the maternal bond is the relationship between mother and child. She was my grandmother. So I know when you see certain people that grew up in a foster care system, or maybe they grew up in going through adoption, and some people say, well, you should be grateful, right? Maybe they did treat them nice, but guess what? The body knows that something is missing. It knows it. It's a missing link. And we got to figure out the missing link so that we can stay in truth with the missing link, so that we can now live our life as a whole life without trying to figure out why that missing link is not a part of who we are. Okay, so I really want you to think about that. And if anybody out there that have this similar story and you want to share your outlook on it, I encourage you to call in 240-719-2560. We want to hear from you. How did that shape you as an adult? Did you start to experience some of the same things that you saw as a child? How did that trauma of that bond? I just want to know, because it's so easy for people to judge people who didn't have that bond, and they'll, say, well, this person is this and this person is that, and you don't really know the foundation. You don't know the story. It's different when people did have their parents, or they did have a healthy relationship, or they grew up in a healthy environment. It's different. It's totally different. Especially of us who was born to parents who used drugs. I mean, we talking about all types of effects coming out. Not being able to, your brain not functioning or developing the right way, or now you're being labeled and put in classes and you're trying to catch up, but your brain don't know how because it has went through so much damage in the womb because of the drugs. It's serious. And what are the long-term effects now that you're adult? It's a lot. And I was actually looking up, you guys. It's this thing called ACE, adverse childhood experiences. And it talks about the childhood traumas as an adult and basically the effects that we have versus people who did not grow up in those type of environments. And it was just like, wow. Somebody out there gets it. Somebody understand that no, it's not an excuse. Yes, we now get to make choices as we are adults, but we didn't have the same foundation, and I want people to really understand that. And one of the things that helped me to break through with that broken bond was therapy. I say this all the time. You have to get therapy, you guys. You have to. It is so important. You got to talk to somebody. If you and your parents do not see eye to eye because they might have left you, they may send you with the aunt or the grandmother, whatever. You have to figure out a way to try to repair that relationship. Or if you feel like you don't want to repair, you got to have closure with that thing, because what happens is you will start parenting out of fear. You will start parenting out of things that wasn't done for you as a child. And then now, guess what? The cycle now comes into your generation. So we don't want to do that, you guys, at all. So I have, let me see, what else did I write down here? Same studies show that babies. Yep, and I also wrote down a few studies of where, studies that show that babies who have not experienced the broken bond, they do somehow do better in school. This is what the studies say, you guys. So not what Lonnie say. This is what studies say. They would experience less trauma. They would experience less depression and anxiety. They would become more independent versus kids who were born coming into the world in that broken bond and they suffered. So I really want you guys to really just think about that. That broken bond, like that relationship with your mother is so important. I just wish I had that opportunity. And if you out there and you have that relationship with your mom, cherish that. Cherish that, you guys. Don't take that for granted. Don't take it lightly. It's a blessing to be able to say, I have my mother. It is a blessing to say, I grew up with my dad. It's a blessing to be able to have somebody to call. Think about a lot of us who didn't have that. Especially for me, who, people like myself with drugs, you didn't know when you was going to ever see them. And I talk about that, you guys, even in my book, The Girl in the Mirror. It gets even deep to tell you how everything, and I'm not giving you too much, but I'm giving you just enough so you can hear my story of the broken bond. But it is actually in my book, and it tells you even some of the stuff I went through as a child because of me not having that mom, or some of the things that my siblings went through, because guess what? All of us got divided. And we see that a lot, especially social workers or people who work with kids. you see where because of that broken bond, guess what? The siblings get split up. And then you grow up again missing links. Now you're not knowing who your sister is. Now you're not knowing who your brother is. Now you growing up thinking you're the only one, but not realizing that your siblings are actually going through the same thing that you're going through, but they're in a different household. So that bond can mess up so many things. It's just not about you. I was literally watching a show today, and it was on Maury. Prime example. On Maury today, it was a clip that I ran through on Facebook. And because that mom had so many issues and she was just bringing babies into the world, you guys, with different people, she brought this guy on, led him believe that he was the dad. We know the story. He wasn't the dad. And these two kids are trying to just left not knowing what's going on. Needless to say, that mom ended up passing away due to a car accident maybe 5 or 6 years after the show. So they did find out who one of the kids' dads was. The grandparents took that baby in. But needless to say, that mother had 5 or 7 other kids that none of them ever grew up. They didn't even, the last time they talked was years. So you see how our mess, when we're not together, you guys, like, do you understand how that starts to shape your children? When you are not in alignment and you start to do a lot of stuff, and then we wonder why our generation is out here trying to figure their way out, because we have literally done them a disservice by going out here in the world just showing up broken. And because we are broken, we're now birthing brokenness. Come on now, do you understand that? So we gotta get the healing that we need so we can really break these generational curses. So we can start bringing kids in the world in this suffering stage and going through withdrawal, you guys. Like going through sickness so early in the womb, coming out suffering like that, now have to be labeled. And being labeled is no joke, you guys. You go through all types of stuff when it comes to going through that broken bond. All through life, you're walking through life like, God, what's going on? I don't even know if I'm worthy. So you're walking around just feeling these things because now the people that's raising you telling you you're not worth it. You know, you're ugly. Your own mother didn't want you. All of these things, you guys. So when you having these broken bonds, your kids are left to feel this. They feeling useless. How many of you guys have experienced that because of your mother? You feeling unwanted. You attaching yourself to relationships you have no business being in because you feel rejected. My God, you feel rejected. You start to walk around and say, well, you know what? Who wants me? If my own mother didn't want me, why would anybody else want me? And you start feeling the neglect. Then you start being so much in rage and in pain that you start walking in pain. And you become so violent. You start to go from 0 to 10 so early. You start to be, people start putting she or he is a menace. They're getting put out of school so early because they angry. You unhappy. Now, you got to see the therapist, and now they labeled you as depression, having depression and anxiety. And now all through life, because you was a victim, because you was a child, guess what you start to live as? A victim. So you walk around, you guys, with so many labels. So many. But you don't have to live there anymore. Don't you understand that God got so much more for you? He got so much greater. Even with that broken bond, he knew that there was going to be a broken bond. He knew that. But he had such bigger plans for you than you ever would have known. I wouldn't have known that the things that I have before me now, that God even loved me that much to give it to me. Because I thought the labels that I heard because of a broken bond, I started to believe them so early. But then God had to come into my heart and remind me of who I was. And you have to remember who you are. And as you start to remember who you are, and then you start to walk in your gifts, and you start to hear God's voice, and you start to say, God, I hear you. And then you start to take away some of those labels. As you see, they start to fall off. As you start to speak God into your life, they'll eventually just fall off. They won't even get to attach to you. And then you'll start to discover who you really are. And there was just labels that tried to define you. You got to say, I am not that broken bond. I am not my mother who left me. I am not the baby that came out addicted to drugs. I am who God called me to be. I am more. And you got to start living it, you guys. You got to start every moment. Start taking it off to reclaim your life back so that you can break the generational curses, so that your children and your loved ones don't have to experience that. Because his plans is to prosper you, not to harm you. And you have to get the strength. And I know it's hard for somebody out there saying, well, Lonnie, everybody around me is gone. I didn't have my father. I didn't have my mother. I didn't have nobody to guide me. But I'm here to tell you that if you allow God to come into your heart, he will guide you. He will guide your every step. He's asking you, give him your heart so he can heal it. Because he said in his words, by his stripes, it's in his word. You was in this word. He already knew. He never gave up on you. He's not like them. He won't walk away. He will restore you so that you can start to build your relationship with your kids. So even if you messed up, he's not shaming you for it. He's not holding you for it. Because guess what? I made some mistakes too. I'm not perfect. Because I was doing what I was taught. And then I had to just get on my knees and say, God, it gotta be a better way. I'm showing up in relationships messy. I'm lingering on to people just trying to figure my way. And God say, just get in my face and I promise you, I won't let you go. And then I had to go back and I was looking at my baby picture of my grandmother holding me. And God is just like that. He holds us. Even at a baby, even though I went through this, and he knew that my grandmother would be able to take care of me and my brother. He said, I didn't forget you. I had to look at this and remind myself, little Lonnie, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I had to let her off the hook. I had to give her permission to heal. And some of you guys, you got to give yourself permission to heal. Stop beating yourself up. You only did what was shown to you. You only did what you knew how to do. But guess what? Now, today, you got a new understanding. You got a new understanding that God can heal you like no other. But it's only him that can do it. You can't turn to no drug. You can't turn to no alcohol. You can't turn to no sex. You can't turn to anything. You just got to get on your knees and say, God, I give it to you. Let him restore you. Let him repair that so that you can start fresh, so that you can start to put on new labels. So now you can walk in your abundance, not your past, not your mother abundance. You take that off. So now you can walk around and say, I am healed. I am healed. I am God's plan. I am God's plan. I am beauty after broken. I am an author. I am a transformational speaker. You got to wake up every morning because why? Because the enemy has already tried to take you out and tell you all of these things that fell off you. He's already tried to destroy you by putting those labels on you. So now every day you got to tell yourself, hey, God, I am healed by your stripes. I am your plan, because you said it in your word. I am your plan. You told me that you was going to prosper me and not harm me. You got to keep saying it, even if it sounds redundant, even if it sounds like, God, I don't think you hearing me. God hears you. He hears you. But you got to believe it. It has to be believing for you to get it. Nobody else can believe it for you. Everybody around you can keep praying for you but you're going to have to pray for yourself sometimes. Sometimes we put too much accountability on other people and too much on them. And God's saying, I need you to come to me and get in my face and ask for what you need. Because I got what you need. I got it. But you're so busy being in your comfort zone and saying, God, well, my whole family did drugs. Maybe that's going to be my life. My whole family depressed. Everybody suffer with bipolar. Maybe that's who I am. That's not who you are. Break this spirit of shame. Break this spirit of guilt. Break this spirit of depression. Break that off your life. That does not have to be your story just because you started off as a broken bond. That's how your story started. How are you going to finish? How are you going to run the race? Some of us do start off a little slower than others. But guess what? That don't determine how I'm going to finish, because I will finish strong. And you got to say that. And you can't look at somebody else's life and say, well, why did they have their mother? You don't know what God is calling for them. You don't know their story. Just because they had a mother or a father in their household, you don't know if they didn't suffer. You don't know what their lifestyle was like over there in their home. You just know that God had a plan for you. And what was your plan? What did he want you to do with your story? He said, Lonnie, I want you to run this race. Yes, you started off a little bit slower. Yes, you started off with some challenges and some things that could have broke you and took you out. But that's not going to be you. So how you going to run your race? What are you going to do? Or are you going to run it and get on the other side of the race and give up and quit? And walk around, and then next thing you know, you start picking up your labels again. Because you start believing. You start back believing. You start doubting God. You start saying, well, I am these things. And then you start going back living unhappy. And then now your kids become the labels. And now their kids become the labels. Because you're doubting them. And now they got to go through the very thing that broke you. The very thing that made you say, why me? The very thing that you casted shame on your parents for not being there. The same thing, and you end up repeating. How many of you out there, the very thing that you said you would never do because your parents did to you, and you started to repeat that cycle? You said you would never leave your kids. You said you would never do drugs. You said you would never. And then you start believing all of these things. And you never gave it to God. You never allowed him in so he can finish your story. You wanted to finish the story on your own because you didn't believe. He didn't ask you to finish the story. He didn't ask you. He didn't want you to do this alone. He knew the weights would be heavy on you. He knew what you was carrying. He knew the times in the middle of the night where you would cry and yearn for your own mother, your own father. He knew that. You don't think he knew that? He gave it to you for a reason. He knew that you was going to grow these muscles to be able to handle that strength. That's why it ain't break you. That's why the world can't break you. Every time somebody try to condemn you or tear you down and you ain't broken yet. You may have failed, but you didn't give up. He knew that. He knew that. But guess what he did? He started to send other people in your life. That's what my God do. He starts sending other people in your life that can start to restore you. He can start bringing people in your life that act as your mother, who can give you that motherly guidance even though your maternal bond was broken. He can still show up, but you got to be careful not to miss those people because your heart is so guarded and your heart is still filled with pain that the very people he sent to bless you, you won't be able to get the blessing because you're so guarded. You're full with abandonment. And God is saying, I'm sending some people your way that's going to be able to help you. I'm sending some people your way that you're going to know it's me, that I haven't forgotten about you. But you gotta heal. Because every so often, because we have grown up in the childhood trauma, we push away people who are a blessing to us. And I have done that because I didn't know I was broken. I didn't know I needed healing. I didn't know how to love. Remember, that wasn't my foundation, you guys. No one said I love you in the household. Just like many of y'all. No one told you that. No one held you and hugged you tight and said, you know what, I love you. No one said that. So now you're going through life trying to figure this thing out. And God is just saying, I loved you. I ain't never leave you. I always love you. But now I need to restore you so you can get the clean heart that I want from you, and not the bitter heart, not the abandoned heart, not the heart that's filled with rage. Because we know when the heart is filled with rage, all we do is give it back out to the world. And now we're screaming and cursing our kids out because of the rage that we built up. Our kids don't deserve that. Your kids don't deserve that. They deserve a parent that is whole. They deserve a parent that can be healed so that they can get the restored you. And that's why we see adults out in the world, when you see them out in the street, they're cursing out their kids and they're yelling at them and they're abusing them because the heart is filled with pain. It's filled with being unhappy It's filled with rejection. It is filled with just depression. They don't deserve that, and neither do you. You don't deserve it. You deserve peace, and I want you to have peace. I want you to have it, because we all know it's nothing like a peace of mind, and I hear people say that a lot, but I don't think people really know what a peace of mind is when all you know is chaos, and all you know is dispute and foolishness and foolery. That's what you know. So do you really know what it's like to have a peace of mind? Do you know what it's like to even be calm and sit and meditate? Do you even know what it's like to be in God's will and God's face, to understand so you can get his victory? Do you even know? You probably don't. So you got to ask God, show me what a peace of mind is. Show me what a restored heart is, so that I can get in your face, and so that I can give people love, so I can stop being so guarded, so I can stop being so mean-spirited to people. And then you wonder why you're not blessed. Then you wonder why everything is a fight when it comes to things with you, because your heart is filled with just pure wickedness. And you got to rebuke that thing in the name of Jesus. Rebuke it. My God. My God. It's so heavy, and it's just so, and that's why I had to write my book, you guys, Beauty After Broken, because I knew that it was so many adults that was suffering like I was, but just didn't know that they needed help. And I know a lot of us say people need healing, and they do. We need therapy. But you guys, you know how many people out there that don't even know that they need healing? They don't even know that they're broken, because they're so used to the behaviors of being abused and abandoned. They don't even know. So even though we see it, we like, you don't see that? You acting crazy. You showing out. You on the street corner, you nodding, you just showing up, you cussing people out. But guess what? If that's their norm and that's the household they raised in, they don't think that that's abnormal. Some people love dysfunction. Why? Because they lived in it, you guys. They lived in it. That is what they know. That is what they know. Until they make a choice. It's all about choices. They have to make the choice. You can't make nobody get healing. You can't make nobody understand that they need healing. You can talk to people until you turn blue, until they turn blue. It has to resonate with them. And that's why I tell people, pray for people. Before you cast judgment and put your mouth on the people, pray for them, that they get the strength that they need to get out of that mess. Because they're being controlled by a spirit. It ain't them. It's the spirit that they came into the world as, that has a hold on them. Just like we seeing our kids running around here doing all types of crazy stuff. It's a spirit in them that has to be cast out. It's not them. So take your mouth off the person and say, God, I need to cast the spirit out of the person so that that person can get the strength. Because we all need that strength sometimes. We all need it. And when you are being pushed around by the devil and his crew and all his foolishness, it takes a wear on you. And sometimes we just got to be that light, you guys. So continue to pray for people. Pray that they get out of that. Pray that they don't let that broken bond take over their life and become who they are. Come on now. It's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice, you guys. So I want y'all to call in, you guys. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid today. Somebody is on the other side. They're saying, Lonnie, you know what? That's my story. Lonnie, that's my nephew's story. Lonnie, I'm raising my niece. That is her story. And I needed to hear this because I don't know how to help her. I don't know what to do. I need help. I need something to be able to say, this is what she's going through. Call in. Don't be afraid. That may be your brother's story. You might be like my grandmother who had to take care of so many of her grandkids because that was most of her grandkids' story. You know, back in those days, people was using drugs 90 going north, just like what we're seeing today with the synthetic drug. So many people are using and doing alcohol, doing all of these things, you guys. And some of us as siblings or family members having to be left to take care of these kids. So call in 240-719-2560. Hope I said that right. I said it right. I got it right this time, you guys. I got it right. Good stuff, you guys. So I'm just excited about the Breakthrough Lounge, and I just want to bring as much awareness to this childhood trauma. You just don't know. This is because it's so many of us, so many adults that I see that's walking in their purpose, and they're telling their story, and they decided to speak up and write books. Some of us have our own shows. Some of us out here are mentors and tutors because we know what that journey is like. It's not easy. So when people look at me and they see the things that I'm doing, I'm like, this ain't me, this is God. Do you know my foundation? Do you know what the devil had, the assignment he had on my life? His assignment was to take me out. His assignment was to say, you know what? She ain't getting nowhere. Her and her siblings gonna be just like her mama. They gonna be just like this, and they gonna be angry for the rest of their life. They gonna be mentally retarded. They gonna suffer with depression. That was the devil assignment. Just like he got an assignment for a lot of y'all life. He wanted to take you out, but he didn't get the victory at all. So you got that story. And don't allow him to take your adult life. Because now you're like, well, you know, Lonnie, that's your story. I don't know if I'm smart enough to write a book. Lonnie, that's your story. I don't think I'm bold enough to tell my story. I don't want people to look at me some type of way. Guess what? They talking about you regardless. They talking about you regardless. So let them talk. Tell your story so that way somebody else can be set free. While you not speaking up, somebody else is not being set free because you refuse to talk. And it's therapy for you. The more and more that you talk about it, it's therapy. And guess what now? I now talk about these same things to my children. I want to be authentic to them. I want to tell them, like, do you understand the things that I do for y'all? I didn't have. My mother walked out of the hospital. She was out on the street. She didn't hold me. She didn't coddle me. She didn't make sure I was good. She was out the hospital in 24 hours, right back out on the street. She didn't see if I was okay. So I'm doing these things because I know what it was like. I know what it was like. So I just encourage you guys, please, mend these broken bonds. Mend these broken bonds. Because some of y'all still having so many issues with your parents, or still holding grudges, still holding them hostage because they didn't take care of you or they wasn't there for you. And because you're holding that, your kids are not getting what they need from you. They're getting the same thing that your mother did to you. So I know you probably like, well, no, I'm not. I'm not on drugs and I'm not doing this to my child. Guess what? Your child not getting the whole heart of you. They're still getting a heart of fear. They're still getting a bitter heart. They're still getting an abandonment heart. Why? Because you have not allowed that thing to rest. You didn't release that thing off of you. So that's why you still don't like your mother. That's why you still don't like your father. That's why you're going through all of this, because you're still mad. You're still angry. And until you get peace with that thing, how are you going to have peace with your own child? You're not. So you can say, well, I have a better relationship. 9 times out of 10, I'm telling you, you probably not. Because they're not getting all of you. They're not. You're still showing up broken. I'm telling you. As much as you probably like to believe, just because you don't have this same exact similarities, maybe you're not on drugs, maybe you're not on alcohol, but I bet you still showing up in fear. I bet you still showing up unloving. I bet you probably saying, you know what, I still haven't even gave my child a hug. You'd be surprised when you go to examine that thing to say, you know what, Lonnie, you're right. I don't think I'm giving my kids my 100. Because of that, release it. Release it, release it, release it. Release. And just breathe. Breathe. I learned to meditate because that wasn't my thing growing up. I was like, who's meditating? I'm not just sitting still. That's just not me. But that was one of my exercises that I learned in therapy, was the meditation and sitting still and my essential oils. And I like to carry this basket around, you guys, because in my house, this is actually my toolbox. I kind of put stuff in there that kind of, when that anxiety or the devil try to come back and try to remind me of certain things, this is my go-to kind of toolbox to kind of remind me like, okay, God, let me go in this toolbox. Let me get some of my affirmations out. Let me remind myself that I am healed by his stripes. I am God's plan. You know, he didn't have me here by accident. It's not by accident that you are here. It's not. Even though somebody along the way might have told you was an accident. Oh, your mother wasn't even supposed to have you. You know, that foolishness stuff that you hear, that kind of stuff. Guess what? You're here, and it wasn't by accident. It was God's plan. So you have to learn to start moving on with your life, you guys. You got to start learning to move on. And I know last show, some people inboxed me about their story and they wanting to become a guest on the show. Inbox me. Do not be afraid. You know, some people like, I don't know if people will want to hear my story. Guess what? Somebody, even if it reach one person, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Because somebody out there want to know that there's hope. There's somebody on the other side of that camera. There's somebody that's sitting on their couch right now and watching me and thinking they didn't even have hope. They didn't even think that God even loved them anymore. So they have to hear your story so that they know that it is possible. People ask me all the time, how did you do it? I'm like, it's God's grace. This ain't me. I don't get the credit for this. This is God doing this. He's activating this. He's literally paving the way, because I had to come to him and just say, God, just come into my life and then you do the rest. You do the rest. Because if it was up to me, you guys, I'd be still walking around bitter, still wanting to fight, still wanting to show up angry, still mean, all of these things. Why? Because it was comfortable. But I didn't want to be that girl. I didn't want to be that woman. And I didn't want to be that for my kids. Because now I'm a mother. Now I have that role. So do I want my kids to now say they have a broken bond story? No. Neither do you. So just get help. I can't say it enough. I cannot say it enough. Please get therapy. Whatever your broken bond, because I also talk about this too, with broken bonds is just not drug related or alcohol related. Some people had a broken bond because maybe your parents went off into the military. Maybe it's so many variations of a broken bond, you guys, with that parent incarceration. My mother also was incarcerated as well. So it was a lot that I endured. It's a lot that you probably endured. It's not the end of you. It's not the end of your story. You can make it. Don't stop believing. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't think it's at the end, because it's not at the end, you guys, at all. So go ahead and call in, you guys. I told you my story, and I want you guys to just call in. We're about to actually go to commercial break. So go ahead. I'm going to say the number again, 240-719-2560. Go ahead and call in, and I will be back. So don't go anywhere. Bye-bye. Oh, we didn't go do commercial? Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Breakthrough Lounge with your author, your life coach, and transformational speaker, Lonnie Grant. So actually, you guys, that was the end of the show. I didn't even know, you guys. I did not know. So that is that is so funny, because that goes to show you how much this topic just means to me, and how much I wanted to come to the Breakthrough Lounge just to share with you about the importance of the broken bond. And I want you to resonate with that a little bit. DM me. However you want to reach me. I am on Lonnie Grant on Facebook, Instagram, Beauty After Broken. I also have a Facebook, Beauty After Broken, as well. Or you can also reach me at beautyafterbroken.com on my website and inquire about how to be a guest on the show. So I love you, and thanks again for joining me, you guys, for episode 2. So I see you next week for episode 3. I love you. Stay blessed, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.